Dear human being, beloved soul, I welcome you to my podcast series, Conversations with the Universe. After a near-death experience, my perception of our human existence changed profoundly. I became more sensitive, with all our known senses. I feel more intensely, see people with different eyes, and often take a different perspective on life and our challenges. In my books, I share these altered perspectives and all the knowledge that has flowed through me since my near death and thus record it. For all those who are searching for something more, for the meaning of our existence here on Mother Earth. And it is now a great pleasure for me to share this knowledge with you in this way as a supplement to my books. This season I am dedicating myself to my very first work, the basics of being. I wish you many wonderful insights on your path. Thank you. Love.
Dear human, beloved soul, from a scientific point of view, the human being, the so-called Homo sapiens, is said to have descended from apes, that is, from an animal. Up to this point, modern science is even right. But as always, in a world of separation and a time of forgetting, this is only half the truth. Because as long as this so-called science insists on recognizing as real only those things that are visible to the human eye, it will and cannot perceive the crucial part of being human. In any case, as long as humans limit themselves to the perception of their physical senses, they can only perceive a limited part of the wholeness of the cosmos. Fortunately, every scientist sooner or later comes to a point where, like Einstein, he has to admit that we don't even begin to have an idea of who we really are. In a universe of connections between worlds and levels, below, above, and with each other, it is again only energy that connects and never disappears. At least up to this point, a scientist who has not yet reached the said limits can follow me. I would like to ask all others who are not scientists and only believe what they see to remember the law of energy conservation and the infinite persistence of energy. This energy, which flows and is in constant motion, now manifests itself in different forms in the different energy zones, depending on which forms are possible in the respective frequency ranges due to the laws that prevail there. In the dense, solid matter we know, it is necessary for an organism to exist. Organisms are animal, and already we find ourselves on the level of animals. Homo sapiens, with his dexterity and intellect, is known to be the best and most intelligently equipped animal on this planet. And it is precisely this highly developed animal form that causes certain energies to choose this form, because the human body is a perfect tool for shaping consciousness. Animals and plants also have tools, but these are so limited that they do not have the potential to develop consciousness. They just are. They exist. They do not reflect or question because they are not designed to do so. But humans have the ability to learn and think independently and to shape these thoughts with the help of their will and their body. People like to use the word divinity or the divine spark in us or even God in us. These terms all want to make one thing clear to us. On the one hand, that we carry something within us, namely the energy that arises as part of a completely different, higher level system. On the other hand, that this energy is endowed with consciousness and that these two, together with the tools that our body offers us, can be creatively active. But it is the connection to the source and along with it, the freedom to decide for ourselves, and thus to be able to work creatively, that makes us this God mentioned above. Thus, we are both animal and God at the same time. We are the beings that want to eat, drink, sleep, and reproduce. But we are also the divine spark of creation, of ideas, inventions, and creative impulses that want to bring the world into being. The animal wants to live. The animal is the organism, the body that you are. It is bound up in various rhythms, in the seasons of a life and in their forces. The divine within us is the energy of the source. which is endowed with an individual consciousness, which permeates us and which we are. It is an energy that can exist in a subtle and bodiless form and is in eternal connection with other energies, beings, and worlds. This divine spiritual being, which we also are, is the actual source of inspiration. The animal is only the executing tool of these impulses. However, humans have managed to remove themselves from the connection between these two components, and they now experience the animal in its most negative forms, separated from the divine source of inspiration. It is precisely this separation that causes all human suffering in this world, because the unconscious animal in us prevails. When the animal acts separately from the flow of life and is therefore not even in harmony with the nature of the planet, then it becomes an unconscious animal. Then it is the unconscious animal that only perceives the outside world, that wants to conquer the world, fight, hunt, and kill without regard for losses. From this attitude, for example, such unconscious sentences as "subdue the earth" arise. This is how the ego arises. The most negative form of an unconscious animal, with the tools of a human being, ultimately creates an ego. An ego that, guided only by the mind, questions energetic laws for so long, doubts them for so long, until all connection to everything, even to nature, is forgotten. Thus, most people act unconsciously in the world of their actual being, but nevertheless self-consciously. They are aware of their ego, far removed from the animal that operates in the flow of nature, and even further removed from the divinity within them. This is ego consciousness, and it is determined, guided, and led by the power of the animal, but above all by the power of the unconscious animal. The ego wants to win, conquer, fight, hate, and hurt. The ego is the ulcer of an unconscious animal that is not in harmony with the laws of nature, but thinks it can become master of these laws of nature. The ego is the madness of the animal in us. The energies of the source create forms of matter in order to unfold, form, create, and thereby experience knowledge through the senses. Thus, the ego, as a form of the unconscious animal, is part of the world of experience that the cosmos itself has created. Therefore, this fact is in no way to be condemned, but to be recognized as important. However, humans are much more than just this animal. We are an animal with the potential to shape and expand consciousness. It is therefore essential that you recognize you are partly animal, but equally, and to an equal extent, you are energy that has a consciousness that wants to live and grow spiritually. An energy that can never perish. An energy that wears this body like a garment and can make use of it. And this energy, if you are aware of it, can make use of your body like a tool to grow in the school of life. Because that is what you are here for. As long as you are not aware of this fact or do not want to be aware of it, the animalistic part in you determines your whole being. The laws always remain the same: free will, thought, power, responsibility. But it makes a big difference whether the animal in you exists unconsciously with these energies, or whether you are fully aware of your true self and apply and live by these laws from this knowledge. Then the body becomes your tool, and you do not become a puppet of an unconscious being that is there but does not really know why or how. And that, like everything animalistic, does not even seek to understand. The path to your forgotten spiritual essence begins, however, exclusively with your body. Therefore, it is important that you do not demonize everything animalistic and earthly in and on you, but rather dive deep into it to experience it, with all its shadows and gifts. Your body is a tool and a perfect aid to bring the divine within you to life, to give the divine within you a form. You can only shape matter with matter. Only your body can accomplish things here, but it is crucial whether this matter consciously or unconsciously shapes an idea. To be aware of yourself means to be aware of all the talents and opportunities in life. In doing so, you become God, the creator of your life, who, through conscious action, forms every thought in harmony with all laws and all living beings into a completely different matter than would be the case without this consciousness. It is natural to ask why this can happen at all, that a person can live and experience themselves so unconsciously in their full potential. There are people who really do drift from one distraction to the next their whole lives long. I would like to give you the following image to illustrate. You observe a person who has closed his eyes and does not know that he can move his eyelids to see. Experiencing life with closed eyes must inevitably lead to chaos. Then you are wandering around in a space that you cannot grasp. Then you are not standing with both feet firmly on the ground, but swaying and not knowing where to find support. But without support, you lose an infinite amount of strength in your search for the light switch. In doing so, you stumble, hurt yourself, bump into others, hurt them, throw things to the ground that may never be repairable. You feel alone just because you can't see the others, and you despair of it. But it's so simple. Stop. Don't look outside. Look inside, and you will quickly realize and experience that so far you have only used a fraction of your actual potential. If you manage to find this calm in your space of helplessness, then you will quickly recognize the path within you that leads out of this darkness. Some masters or teachers refer to this signpost in you as the inner voice. At first, this confused me because I expected to hear a voice, just as you hear the other person in a conversation. This is also possible, but should be treated with caution, as it takes a long time to properly identify possible voices. Most people on the path to self-discovery experience a deep feeling instead of a voice, which gives them very clear impulses. A feeling of yes or no. A feeling that pulls you, for example, to the left or to the right. But be careful. Now it gets complicated, because recognizing where the animal and where the divine in you feels is a long, difficult task. Both have their justification, but the so-called inner voice that I mean is a feeling deep in your heart. You can recognize it clearly by how much heart blood, how much warmth, intention, and love you experience or not with a feeling. But in fact, the connection between the animal in you and the energetic part in you is essential to develop your true potential and to accomplish much more beautiful things here in the world, instead of just eating, drinking, sleeping, and reproducing. And the energy that is inherent in you, in turn, is needed by the animal to form its spiritual impulses in matter. Both belong together. But the marriage of spirit and organism, of God and animal, can only be consummated by you, by your will. Those who separate the two from each other rob themselves of the chance to truly be whole. Then life becomes a blind stumbling in matter, which leads exclusively to selfish action. Thus, the egoist is a person who is least aware of himself, but above all, someone who does not want to be aware of the connection with the All One. And so, the egoist is the being who experiences absolute separation. At the other extreme of separation, a person completely renounces the earthly and animal gifts of physical experience. Here too, what belongs together is separated. We did not come here to act exclusively spiritually, but to form the divine spiritual impulses in the coarse material matter and to experience them here. Only the body allows us to experience these feelings. If we renounce the body, we renounce everything that constitutes the actual meaning of the cycle of birth and rebirth. So let me summarize. The body is the tool to experience knowledge. The mind is the key to use the body knowingly. You can only connect both through your heart. Only when both work together, you become the creator that you actually are, and thus the God that you have previously sought, only outside of yourself. Thank you very much for listening, and I wish you many intense insights on your journey. Carpe Vitam.